except piss him off. Maybe he'll only have one eye to see, but it doesn't matter, he already has a hold of me, right? So that's not the kind of stuff we're going for. So when we're doing contact flow, stuff like this is really meaningless. What we want is, as I'm flowing to be unavailable to him, notice everything that's happening to him involves my entire skeleton penetrating through him, and what he does to me, likewise, should be the same, and that's why I need to get out of the way of it, right? So, try in your contact flow to have that, A, do nasty shit to people. Okay, no, because seriously, like the idea here is, if anyone attacks you, brief training philosophy, in Guided Chaos, we always train for the worst case scenario on the assumption that if something less threatening happens, it's much easier to dial back and be appropriate to the situation versus if we constantly train for low levels of threat, all of a sudden he decides to kill us, it's harder to ramp up, right? So all of our training is, we're assuming as we're flowing that we're dealing with the worst case scenario, so it's perfectly legit to send his head forward while I crush his throat or try to break his neck here. No guarantee it'll happen, but it won't feel good to him. Nope. So boom, whatever it's gonna be. We're training to do nasty shit. He's already on top of me, I'm training to squeeze his nuts. We're gonna get up here, bust his arm. Oh, you alright?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You can get it. He's not using my guns here, so I
okay.
One of them at least. So
was that a joke?
Not on Facebook. Okay. No. So basically, make sure in your contact flow, don't get distracted again by this stuff. It doesn't matter who's hitting, who's being hit. We're training to learn about efficient motion with the whole skeleton and to move with it, whatever it may be. Again, no difference between hitting versus being hit. Okay? No difference between grappling and striking. No difference what angle he's at. Okay? What are you doing?
Well, I was trying to penetrate through here.
Yeah, but you're using your arm muscle to do some sort of
Hadouken.
Right? And if it takes that much effort, do you think you should be doing it?
This becomes another question about how much to show the drop, right? I mean, and
even in here, drop.
Okay.
Hard through me.
Yeah.
You got nothing here. Here's where all my weight is. Even when you're dropping, you basically don't want to do anything that requires a lot of effort. Feel where my weight is. Change the angle to where I'll easily go. No. You won't have time for that. Just in your feel.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep. Just a second. That looks better, and it takes a lot less effort. Brief story. I know I keep saying brief. One of the first master classes, John was doing some multiple attacker stuff on us, and he demonstrated something. When you're one of the multiple attackers going against John, you'll oftentimes feel him kind of slip behind you, and he'll feel like he's giving tons of pressure on you with his hand to just basically launch your body into everyone else. It'll feel like you're getting shot put or something, right? It feels like, a few people come here, please. All right, wait, not awful. Whatever. Okay, if you guys are here, it's it'll be over here, and it'll feel like, whoa, it'll feel like a lot of force on your shoulder or back. What John actually then had to do, he had someone, here, Josh, he had a student put their hand in between the guy and John's hands, and the most fucked up thing was felt. John was not really putting any more pressure than this, than kind of a solid pat on the back. It felt like a shitload of pressure because he was feeling exactly where your balance was and where you were moving, and basically going along with that, adding almost nothing himself. Yet it felt like a lot because you were getting thrown off balance and you were that ergo tightening up against it, and it felt very powerful. But in reality, it wasn't that he was getting here and just push as hard as he can to make you move. No, he was getting here, feeling where you're off balance and letting you go right there. Feel the difference? Yeah. Okay, so likewise, if you're getting this Hadouken position, if Josh is nice and rooted here, no amount of drop or whatever else is going to help me. All right? I might be able to do it, but it's not going to be efficient. What I can do is feel exactly where his balance is, and then just use very little effort to go there. Another analogy John gave when he was doing contact flow is that he plays something called red light, green light. All right? And this is it's just an image. It's not like what he's actually doing in his head. But it's basically, if he makes contact and there's a lot of force or resistance, that's a red light. He doesn't try to force through the red light, because he'll get a ticket. Or get hit. Okay? Basically, if he feels a red light, he just switches somewhere else. He feels for the green light. Right? Or if he's feeling here, that's a green light. Cool. Boom. Right? But if he feels red light, green light, Come on. These are all green lights now. Okay, so please go for the green lights. Good question. What was your question?
Oh, no, just about, if you're trading, my question was basically, if you're trading punches, my assumption from what you were saying before is that it probably was not the case that you're striking only when it's being given to you, but you're probably both going for it, right?
Probably. I mean, it could be one person, it could be the other, just, you know, it shouldn't really be happening. If you're both moving with your whole body, you might, I mean, frankly, if you're both kind of getting hit at the same time and you're both really moving with it, I mean, that's fine. But if it's basically one guy's getting hit and just trying to like bop the other guy, then that's not good training for me. Okay? In fact, it's really bad training for me because like my ego is getting satisfied by whacking the guy and I'm actually learning bad things. Thinking that I can hit him while he's fucking penetrating my throat. Doesn't make sense, right? And kind of along these lines, brief notes about dropping and hitting. This might help people. It's all related to contact flow. Most people, conventional martial arts, just normal thought process, think of hitting as, here's the rocket ship, here's the launch pad. And I want to launch this rocket as fast as I can away from the launch pad. Sometimes they'll like give a little boost to the launch pad to add a little like more oomph to the rocket or something. Right? But it's basically this idea. Doing external hitting hurts right now because of the training I was doing 2 days ago. Right? Basically, but that idea that you're sending stuff away from your body, you're sending your limbs away from your body, whatever limb it is, doesn't really work so well in the sense that the only way to get more of that is to increase recruitment of like fast twitch muscles and everything else. Even if you're like kind of boosting the rocket by like moving the launch pad a little more. Okay? What the image that we want to have is that the entire skeleton is the rocket, so to speak. The entire skeleton is what's hitting. So in other words, so we have something here. Who wants to, no, not all volunteer. Just hold it like just against your body like this. Famous last words. All right. Okay, so I'm not trying to, right? I'm not trying to like rocket it like this, okay? I'm taking my whole skeleton and just moving the whole skeleton through. Whatever the striking surface may be, okay? Just the whole skeleton. And if you notice, the actual part that's doing the hitting is very relaxed. Okay? I mean, it's basically, it's as flaccid as it can be while still being like kind of held in the position that I want. Okay? This is even before we talk about the drop or anything. Thank you. Okay? So basically, on the bag, if you notice, every bone in my body, it's not a matter of rooting here and twisting here or whatever. Every bone in my body, to a certain degree, is into this. And if you notice how loose it is, okay? This is all the actual limbs. These are just parts of the skeleton being thrown through the target by the pressure of my feet against the ground. Sound familiar? Okay. Okay? Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, whatever. But, you know, what enables that short stuff is simply, it's just the whole skeleton hitting the target, driven by the feet against the ground. The drop comes in a couple ways. First of all, like when you drop, you're basically, you know, you're using the acceleration force of gravity to, in essence, like increase your weight versus what it usually is. And that sensation of like falling and causes that absolute maximum like fast twitch contraction in your body just for a split second. Don't try to do it consciously. It's just a split second thing. Steam, water, ice, all that stuff. But what it also does is it contains the over travel. Right? There's another way of explaining the drop. So basically, if I were to like do something like literally throwing my entire skeleton into the target, well, if I were to miss, okay, boxing. Well, anyway, okay, you get the idea. So obviously that's no good. But if I were to drop at the end of that, that drop is actually containing the over travel of what I was doing. Does this make any sense whatsoever? Kind of says. The main thing to get from all that is don't think of striking as rocket ships taking off from the launch pad. think of it as just taking your entire skeleton and just moving into the target. What this means is, just be strong. Okay? So instead of that, I'm allowed to let you know I'm doing it badly. Okay, so instead of that, I'm taking my entire skeleton and just putting it through him wherever he allows me to. Right? Wherever he's directing my body to go, my whole skeleton coming down there. So in other words, I don't want to do this. Even to his, raise your shoulder. Even to his neck. Are my triceps going to be enough to, he might have a really thick, stiff neck. It might not hurt him, right? The entire skeleton, and you get a feel for this, this is part of body unity. You start to feel how to use your whole skeleton as one. Whatever he does, even if he's bending way out of position, right? My whole skeleton is part of everything that happens. And kind of at the end of each motion, or wherever I can, that little drop kind of just enhances everything, enabling you to take what would normally be a long motion and accomplish it in a very short time frame, enabling your skeleton instead of being basic. And when I talk about the skeleton, I say it because you really want to think I don't want you to think of your muscles doing anything, but it's basically your skeleton. Whatever muscle you have, that's just adding mass to your skeleton. And when you do the drop, that's adding more mass, not adding more mass, but adding more weight, right? Physics, 10th grade, something, different things. I'm gonna get the idea, kind of. So in terms of your contact flow, you want to kind of have that feeling. Obviously, we're going slowly, but you still want that feeling of your whole skeleton being part of all this. If he's hitting me, oh, good, right? I really had to get out of the way because it was his whole skeleton coming. Unfortunately, he was a little off balance, so it didn't work perfectly, right? So we want to feel that. And the way you stay on balance is by not going beyond the limits of your own balance, which is taught to you in polishing the sphere and washing the body, doing both at once. And by doing the drop to contain the over travel, which also adds a lot of oomph, which is nice. And also, by the way, remember I was talking about whenever you sink in order to get stuff into the ground, in speed that becomes a drop. By the way, the only way to evade good drop hitting is to drop yourself. Drop evade, makes sense, right? It's the only thing that kind of gets you moving fast enough. And again, some general guidelines. Whatever, if you remember nothing else here, just remember this. When in doubt, sink. Josh is like doing stuff to me. I feel like I can't get out of the way. Do I go this way? When in doubt, you're doing something, Josh? Bend your knees. The answer is usually be there. Okay, no matter how fucked up it gets, here we go. Come. Put your hands here. All right, he's pushing me down. I bend my knees. If you could just sink, that allows you a little bit of extra space and a little bit more looseness to get out of it. Okay, even if you feel like all jammed up or whatever, right? Keep your head up. Right, it feels all jammed, yeah? Okay, but now, instead of just unfurling randomly, unfurl into me. Exactly. Okay, so when in doubt, sink, no. Sink and just sink straight down. Now you're trying to do something. Don't try to do something. Here, feel it. You do something, you have me in some weird, messed up position, right? I sink, and I just let it go. You missed this part of the class in the beginning, so that's why. You have me in some weird position, right? If I have a thought in mind of what I want to do, keep going. See how it doesn't help me at all? You just follow me, because you can feel what I'm thinking, right? Instead, as you're putting pressure, I just sink, and whatever happens, happens, right?
Slight movement of the body.
Yeah, but that's totally passive, all right? I'm not thinking about it. Sink straight down, and let it go. But don't let it go away. Here, that's it. Oh, you're jammed up. Slow it down. Sink. There we go. Good. No, don't fight it. Just sink and let shit happen. Boom. Nice. All right. No. Okay. Just sink. No, you're trying to whip it around. Sink straight down slowly. That's way too far down. You're good. Put me in some weird fucked up position. Right? yourself. Because again, why does he feel jammed up here? Do you feel jammed up here?
I am.
Right? Anyone? Who can guess why he feels jammed up here?
Because
He jammed up himself.
One at a time. What?
Because his arms cross the center.
One reason, Steve?
He jammed up himself.
What?
He's controlling himself.
True. Any other
Tension
reasons?
in the
He
upper
has no
body.
more range of motion in his arms.
Any other reasons?
He's not in his legs, he's all in his upper body.
Yeah, he has a lot of excess tension in his upper body. How's his balance right now?
Leaning towards you.
Try to do anything. Notice whatever he does, it throws him off balance. Okay, so he's basically kind of on the edge of his balance, or he's actually losing balance. How is balance related to tension? If you're off balance, are you able to get loose? Not only insofar as falling on the ground loosely. Okay? As he bends his legs, without doing anything else, a couple things happen. A, he gains some balance, which enables his joints to start releasing. Because basically when you're falling off balance, the joints are naturally going to start straining. Basically, it's a natural, if an infant feels like it's about to fall, the moral reflex, I think it is, like everything will suddenly start tightening and grabbing, right? It's because, imagine like a little monkey riding on its mother's back, they're about to fall. They grab onto her hair and stay on, right? And we all have that little fear of falling subconscious thing. Different position, you're getting bored of this, right? So, so basically, if he tries to just move from here, right? He's like, he can't get loose, he's on the edge of his balance. It's not a fucked up position. You don't have shoulder problems, do you? You will now, right? Okay? But as he sinks to gain that balance, all of a sudden these joints unlock. Cool, huh? Hit me on my painful nose thingy. Alright. First time for this. Also, geometrically speaking, a right triangle in your hand, be the base of the right triangle. Right. Here's the right angle in here. Okay? So what happens if the base of the right triangle lengthens? Lower your hand. The hypotenuse needs to get longer, right? Anyone not following me? So if the hypotenuse is what's connecting us here, it's wherever I'm putting my pressure in, as he lowers himself, my pressure actually needs to penetrate deeper in order to keep the pressure on. It needs to adjust. So just by virtue of the fact, push into me, right? By virtue of the fact that I just got lower, I now suddenly have more space to work with. Here, he might have taken away all my space, which again, wouldn't have happened if I had just reacted properly in the first place, but still, bear with me. As he pushes in, I want more space up. Now I have space to work with, okay? And whatever else comes next. Make any sense? So again, what does that all come down to? When in doubt, sink. And what does that translate to? It means in your contact flow. Oh, and now if it's good to sink when in doubt, what about if he does anything? Ooh, I sink a little there. I feel any sort of pressure at all. Oh, I sink a little there. I feel anything from him in any direction. Oh, I sink a little here, I sink a little here. Remember what I said before? Slow motion sinking in contact flow translates to dropping. Wouldn't it be cool if you were really attacking me? To be dropping a lot? As opposed to, let me see if I can do that without dropping. Right? It's just kind of like dancing along the surface of the earth. Okay? So you want to build up, again, we generally don't want to build habits, because habits are just things that you do for no reason. Okay? We want to build like good reactive motion. But if we can kind of always have that sinking component to our motion, that's a good thing. Because that'll translate into, again, he's suddenly like jumping on me, or whoa! There's a good drop. I think that would work. Whatever happened up here. Right? He's doing something else. Boom! And all of these, because if we were doing slow contact flow and I felt him moving in, whoa, I'd be sinking here. Whoa, I'd be sinking here. Right? You push into here, slow contact flow, right? Whoa, I'd be sinking here. Boom. Correct. Sinking there. Okay? Which again, it's pretty cool if all that directly translates into this. He does anything. Boom! Boom! Continue. Bam. Right? So you notice how when things get faster, oh, that just looks like close combat. It's a little bit of more subtlety and education to it, and in terms of exactly where I'm moving. And especially like if we're just strictly hard close combat, once he suddenly starts grappling with me, if I don't have that balance training all of a sudden, shit's no good. Whereas if I do, boom, right, it changes things. So again, I'd say when in doubt, sink, but really it should be happening all the time. And John, in some of his recent teachings where he's trying to get across a lot of the deeper stuff, basically when Tim passed away, kind of reminded him, oh shit. So Tim basically died with a lot of knowledge that no one else really has in terms of like the more subtle internal stuff. So he's like, better get that shit out there by some other method besides just subtle training, and eventually it'll catch on, right? So like a lot of it is that, I think he recently put out a video on Facebook about that descending parabola and everything he does, right? That's basically a much more refined internal version of what I'm saying, which is basically it's sync everywhere. If you can get that kind of descending parabolic stuff going everywhere, even in the most basic exercise, you know this exercise? Instead of just doing that, if you can get this kind of, this descending parabola with your body, and really like reaching and feeling a lot of pressure build up in your core, and then you place your foot and you transfer your weight, like you're reaching with your whole insides, that's kind of part of that at a gross level. And then he does it with everything, and that's why sometimes as soon as you touch him, it feels like, even if it's just like he's over here, it feels like he's just penetrating right to your center constantly, right? And that's part of how that's possible. Anyways, getting a little too far afield. If you guys want to, I think there's enough of them, right? Go to a heavy bag and just feel for yourself. Please, 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 you do not have to hit hard, especially if you have any injuries, but just feel for yourself that idea of just hitting with your skeleton. You feel very easy, shouldn't really have any ill effects. All right?
Could you, I do this, could you roll? So like,
That's a very close version of it. And so you can come like it from me from here. Tell how I just like went slightly down. Okay. As long as you weren't using a lot of arm strength there.
I was actually pushing on you. I thought you were.
No, whatever it was. No, I was just. Yeah, but you can penetrate with it. And basically, when you do it right, do something amazing. This should feel basically effortless, right? If you notice my arms, are basically flaccid, and it's all about, as I sink away, also penetrate and do something else. Right, and it feels very solid there, but it wasn't because I was doing this. Because
What is this, ground basically up here?
yeah, basically the ground comes from my skeleton. Same concept as when you're coming at me, you're in fright reaction, and the reason why this feels so solid is because it's like the bone directly into the ground, whereas if I did it like this, now you push your eyes just like the elbow holding it up. So you want that effect everywhere. So even here. Right? I'm not saying to like be hard everywhere, I'm just trying to like kind of give you the feeling. And if you can be light everywhere and just have that in all your strikes, that's really exciting. Just show it at least. I know you don't want to hurt your thumb, but relax.